distance safely. Our call to all remains urgent. De-escalate now. Respect international humanitarian law. You must do this by protecting civilians, including humanitarian and health workers, ensure safe, unimpeded access for humanitarian delivery, and fund the response. As of today, less than $100 million of the $308 million required under the March appeal from Lebanon has been received. On the peacekeeping end, I can tell you that we remain deeply concerned by the ongoing escalation between Hezbollah and Israel, including Israeli strikes in Beirut. UNIFIL peacekeepers report in their area of operations continued exchanges of rocket and artillery fire, airstrikes, and clashes on the ground, alongside an increased presence of Israeli forces and assets inside Lebanese territory. Over the weekend, kinetic activity was concentrated around Yatar and Bint Jbeil in Sector West and Al-Kantara in Sector East. On Friday, an explosion occurred inside a UN position and El Edais. 3 peacekeepers were injured, including 2 seriously, and again, in this case, the peacekeepers were Indonesians. All 3, the 2 most seriously injured personnel were medevaced to a hospital in Marayun, where they are now reported to be in stable condition. The less seriously injured personnel received on-site medical treatment. And you will have seen on Friday, we reported that Israeli soldiers destroyed all of the force protection surveillance cameras facing Mingi Street, which is on the outside of UNIFIL's Nakora headquarters. These cameras were positioned solely to monitor the immediate vicinity of our headquarters and ensure the safety and security of both military and civilian peacekeepers. We've conveyed our serious concerns to the IDF, and again, we urge all actors to uphold their obligations under international law and ensure the safety and security of UN personnel at all times. And a quick update for you from Gaza. Our colleagues at OCHA say that UNICEF and their partners have restored access to clean water in the south of the Gaza Strip after an airstrike on March 25th. This attack had curbed output of the southern Gaza seawater desalination plant to less than 20% of its normal capacity. OCHA says about 500,000 people in Deir el-Balah in the northern Mawasi area of Khan Yunis couldn't fully access drinking water as a result, despite UN-backed efforts to bring in clean water on trucks. And moving to Europe and Ukraine, our humanitarian colleagues there tell us that intensified attacks over the weekend killed 42 people, including a child, and injured some 200 others. Attacks also damaged health, education, energy facilities, disrupting water in several regions. This is according to what authorities are telling us. Our humanitarian colleagues note that more than 25,000 people have been displaced from Donetsk region so far this year. Our partners continue to support government-led evacuations, assisting the most vulnerable people, including those with limited mobility. Following the latest attack, our partners mobilized emergency assistance across multiple regions, providing medical and psychosocial support, as well as distributing food and other essential supplies, and support people with cash assistance. Our humanitarian coordinator for Ukraine, Matthias Schmale, stressed that under international humanitarian law, residents must be protected as they go about their daily lives. And you will have seen that on Thursday, the 3rd session of the PrepCom for the entry into force of the BBNJ, the Beyond Borders and Natural Jurisdiction Agreement, ended on Thursday with a renewed commitment among stakeholders to advance the timely and effective implementation of the agreement. We thank delegations for their tireless work and dedication, as well as the co-chairs, Adam McCarthy of Australia and Ambassador Janine Felson of Belize, for their leadership, reaffirming the significance of the BBNJ agreement as a milestone for global ocean governance and the multilateral system. The first meeting of the Conference of the Parties will be held next year, 2027, the 11th to the 22nd of January, in accordance with the relevant provisions of the agreement. Today is the International Day for Sport and Development and Peace. This year's theme, Building Bridges, Breaking Barriers, reflects sport's unique role as a universal language that cuts across cultures and borders, advancing the UN's goal for development and peace. We have a quiz because we got some money. All right. This country has over 30 languages that are spoken, and it has some of the highest dunes in the world, which the tallest one stands 325 meters and is called Big Daddy. Listen to the cameraman from Al Jazeera, because he always knows. We thank our friends in Windhoek for their full payment to the regular budget. Namibia brings us up to 99, so we would say good thinking 99. There you go, for those of you who get that reference to 1970s television. Yes, Edie.
Thank you, Steph. Does the Secretary General have any reaction to the threat by President Trump to blow up power plants, bridges, and other infrastructure if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened by tomorrow evening?
Yes, I mean, we were alarmed by the rhetoric seen in that social media post that threatened American attacks on power plants, bridges, and other infrastructure should Iran not agree to a deal. The Secretary General has been very clear on issues regarding international law, and he urges yet again all parties to abide by their obligations regarding the conduct of these hostilities. And he recalls that civilian infrastructure, including energy infrastructure, may not be attacked, even if specific civilian infrastructure were to qualify as a military objective. International humanitarian law would still prohibit attacks against them if they may be expected to cause excessive incidental civilian harm. Once again, the Secretary General reaffirms that it's high time for the parties to stop this conflict, as there is no viable alternative to the peaceful settlement of international disputes. Yvonne Murray, RTE.
Thank you. So such attacks could constitute war crimes in the Secretary General's view?
They would constitute violations of international law. And I think whether something is a crime or not a crime would have to be decided by a court. But any attack on civilian infrastructure is a violation of international law, and a very clear one. Gabriel.
Thanks, Steph. Do you have any update on the Strait of Hormuz and the Mr. Moreira de Silva's work for the last few days on how that mechanism is working? Or if it's
I mean, he has been, he was continuing his discussions as of the end of last week. His contacts are continuing. Also, I wanted to let you know that Jean Arnaud will be heading to the region today, and we'll be able to report more detail soon, likely tomorrow or the day after, on his list of countries that he will visit.
And on UNIFIL, the investigation into the incidents that injured and killed the UNIFIL personnel are still under investigation?
The investigation results are being processed right now, so as soon as I have something to share with you, I will. Okay, Abdelhamid, I see you. I assume you have a question if I see you, so go ahead.
Thank you. Today, Al-Aqsa Mosque was stormed by Security Minister Ben Ghafir, although the mosque was closed for Muslim prayers for almost over a month. But yet Ben Ghafir found the time and with his security to storm the Aqsa Mosque. Any comment on that?
Look, we are continually concerned about the efforts to change the status quo of the holy sites in Jerusalem, and we continue to watch that very closely.
My second question, 9 Palestinians were killed in Al-Maghazi refugee camp in Gaza today. Are you aware of this development and the number of people killed?
I have not received those reports here at this point. Iftikhar.
Thank you, Steph. I'm sure you have seen today's Reuters report about a proposal submitted by Pakistan, a ceasefire proposal submitted by Pakistan to United States and Iran. Has the Secretary General any knowledge of it? Has he been informed?
We've seen those reports. I don't have anything to share with you on that at this point. All right. Thank you very much. We will ask our guest, Mr. Pichon, the resident coordinator in Cuba, to come on the screen. Great, we see you. So, Francisco, welcome. And please, you go ahead. You have the floor. And then we'll take some questions. Go ahead.
Very good. Thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you for your attention. Today, I have been asked to update you on the current humanitarian situation in Cuba and the response to the response that the United Nations system is deploying. The UN system, together with the UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, and also in very close dialogue with the national authorities, just 10 days ago, launched a restructure action plan in response to the ongoing energy contingency and the remaining impacts of Hurricane Melissa. We launched an action plan last November in response to Hurricane Melissa. As you know, this is not a conventional emergency. This restructure plan combines ongoing actions being originally implemented in response to Hurricane Melissa with a much broader and more integrated approach that places the energy crisis at the center of our response. The plan targets the critical needs of around 2 million people across 63 municipalities in 8 provinces in Cuba. As mentioned in an earlier briefing, the energy crisis is having rather systemic and multiplying humanitarian impact, affecting all aspects of daily life in Cuba, health, water and sanitation, food systems, education, transportation, telecommunications. And the country has gone for more than 3 months without sufficient fuel, and the humanitarian consequences, as you might expect, continue to deepen every day, despite recent efforts to deliver fuel by the Russian Federation. The situation comes on top of multiple shocks in just over a year, including Hurricane Melissa, 2 earthquakes in the eastern part, and several disconnections of the energy power, the national power system. These are all combined with a fragile economic context, limited access to financial resources, and of course the ongoing external adverse environment that Cuba faces. The action plan accordingly underscores the need for fuel and energy backup solutions as enablers of our response. And for this reason, the UN is actively working with partners and member states to identify solutions that guarantee the viability of our operations. And at the same time, I should say, we are exploring with other actors who can contribute logistical solutions, including fuel, and we are doing this with the private sector in Cuba. But The point is that humanitarian needs in the country remain quite acute and persistent. And they are not being resolved by the arrival of limited external fuel supplies, including as I mentioned, the recent oil shipment from the Russian Federation. And while any additional fuel may provide temporary relief, it is insufficient compared to the scale of the national needs, and does not really address the structural nature of the oil blockade and how it affects all essential services. So access to fuel remains a determining factor for ensuring the operational viability of our plan. And for this reason, our plan is contemplated for an implementation to the end of the year, and we will continue monitoring the humanitarian needs very closely to adapt and adjust our response as the situation evolves, always with a focus on the critical interventions to save lives. Let me just say a little bit about the action plan. Is designed to complement the plan is designed to complement the national response. It focuses on traceable and equitable use of limited fuel resources, which we adapt to the specificities of each focus sector. And these sectors are logistic, which includes a working group on energy, health, water and sanitation, food security, shelter and protection of vulnerable populations, and education. There is a central cross-cutting pillar of the plan is the deployment of energy backup solutions, including solar-powered irrigation systems, solar panels for hospitals and schools, strengthening water pumping infrastructure to renewable energy, and prepositioning critical energy equipment to ensure continuity of the essential services. And these are solutions that are essential for life-saving services in a context of prolonged energy instability. The plan expands our previous response designed in response to Hurricane Melissa from 33 to 63 municipalities, and the target population, as I mentioned, doubled from 1 million to 2 million people. And to implement this response, we are mobilizing as a target $94.1 million US dollars. Of which today we have already mobilized 26.2 million, mostly from the previous Melissa response. And that means that we have a funding gap of about $60 million. We believe this is a very critical window of opportunity to mobilize the additional resources. And of course, the role of the media is essential in raising awareness of the scale and the urgency of the situation that we face. I must say that since the last time I was here in this briefing, the humanitarian impacts of this energy shock have worsened. And maybe allow me to mention some figures that are quite indicative of the extent of the emergency. In March alone, for example, the national electrical system disconnected 3 times, leaving the country in the dark for 2 days, while the energy was recovered. We have over 96,000 surgeries that have been postponed, including more than 11,000 surgeries for children. The national immunization program is also delayed, affecting around 3,000 children. We have about 1 million people that depend on water trucking for drinking water. and which are currently constrained by the fuel shortages. We have about 411,000 children and adolescents that are attending shortened school days. We have food security chains are all under severe stress because the lack of fuel affects the production, the irrigation, the collection, the preservation, and the commercialization processes in the food supply chains. And at the heart of the crisis are the most vulnerable groups. There are nearly 300,000 older people living alone in Cuba, more than 114,000 people with disabilities, almost 3,000 patients requiring hemodialysis, more than 32,000 pregnant women at risk due to instability in access to prenatal services. We have about 5 million people living with chronic illnesses who lack access to the required medications in a stable way. And as you know, Cuba is also the most aged country in Latin America, and this obviously further intensifies those vulnerabilities. These are individuals who depend on functioning systems, and they need doctors to reach health facilities, teachers to reach schools, and transportation systems to support children with disabilities and essential services. A final message is that our central objective as the UN in Cuba is really to protect life and support those in the greatest need. And this is really about ensuring that essential services continue to function even under the extraordinary constraints that we face. This is really about safeguarding dignity, and above all, it's about saving lives, and saving lives cannot really wait. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you very much. We'll go first to ED Lederer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pichon. On behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association for doing this briefing. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. One follow-up and one question. On Hurricane Melissa, apart from the $94 million, has the United Nations been able to resume aid to the areas affected? And secondly, is the UN still having trouble getting aid in the warehouses at the port because of the gas shortages? Or since the United States has said it's allowing some in the private sector to import gasoline, has the United Nations been able to take advantage of this and import some gasoline as well? Thank you.
Francisco, please.
Yes, thank you very much for those questions. Yes, of course, the implementation of our action plan in response to Hurricane Melissa has been affected severely by the fuel shortages. At the moment, I have information that about 170 containers of essential humanitarian goods that have already arrived in Cuba are in ports. And this amount to about $6.3 million that are not reaching to beneficiaries because of the fuel shortages. And as I mentioned, as part of our efforts, we are at the moment, our humanitarian team is tendering a process to hire private operators who are able to import fuel in the country to support the transportation of these essential goods from the ports to the areas affected by Hurricane Melissa. So we are looking at all options, including working with the non-state sector or the private sector in Cuba that have been authorized and have been able to receive some limited fuel supplies. Recall the action plan that we have restructured includes the most essential activities to save life under Hurricane Melissa, but integrating the energy shock as a central aspect of our response in our restructure plan.
But just as a follow-up, has the United Nations itself been given any authorization to import gasoline?
Yes. At the moment, there are ongoing dialogues between the UN Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in New York with representatives of the U.S. mission at the UN and with support of some member states to try to secure concordance to be able to bring fuel to Cuba to support our humanitarian response and ensure that we can safeguard essential services. But these are ongoing, these dialogues are ongoing, and we hope that we have a solution soon to ensure the operational viability of our entire plan.
Thank you. Alex?
Thank you so much, sir, for doing this. This is Alex with Russia's RIA Novosti News Agency. I have a follow-up on what you just said. You've mentioned that you're exploring with other actors, how they can contribute logistical solutions, including fuel. Is it just private sector actors or some state actors? Thank you.
Yes, yes. We, as I said, we are looking at different solutions. Our response plan is in complement to the efforts and the mobilization that the national authorities obviously are undertaking. I mean, it's an issue of fuel, and as I mentioned in my previous response, but we are also working with private sector to ensure that we can support hospitals and schools with backup energy solutions that based on renewable resources as well. That's a very important part of our response to mobilize energy alternative to safeguard essential services. And already in Cuba there is quite developed private sector focusing on renewables and transition to renewable systems, which we are obviously working with to ensure that those are part of the solutions that we can generate as part of our response plan.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay. Francisco, thank you very much. And oh, sorry, Abdelhamid. Yes, go ahead, Abdelhamid. Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. I'm sorry for that. My name is Abdelhamid Sayam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. Mr. Pichon, I have a few interrelated questions. First, can you tell us about the mood of the Cuban people? How, from your contact on daily basis with the Cuban people, what are they anticipating? Are they expecting the worst to come? And the second, can you confirm that no more Venezuelan fuel coming into Cuba? And is Mexico also helping the Cuban people with some kind of fuel supplies? And my last question is, do you see that the kind of collective punishment for a whole people because there is a neighbor who doesn't like the system? And I know it's a political question, and does that fall into a kind of war crime or crimes against humanity? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, well, of course, the general mood of the population is a lot of frustration for the reduced delivery of essential services for the population, the increased hardship. Everyday life is much harder for people and communities in Cuba. There has not been any Venezuelan fuel arriving in the country to the extent of my knowledge. I think the only fuel that has been received has been the one I referred to in my comments from the Russian Federation, which has been said is about 100,000 tons, about 700,000 barrels. That will be enough for needs of about 12 to 13 days. But no additional fuel has arrived except for the one that has been authorized for private sector activities. With respect to Mexico, yes, I mean, there has been, Mexico is one of the member states that have been very much engaged in also helping find a solution to ensure that there is access to humanitarian oil for the humanitarian response for our action plan. But those discussions are taking place at the highest level, and I've been told that there could be a solution, but we are waiting because, as I mentioned, the operational viability of our plan depends on access to humanitarian oil. Of course, we are making every effort to ensure that we work with private sector and are able to tap into working with private operators to be able to transport humanitarian goods to the areas affected by the hurricane or other areas affected by the energy shock. But this effort is really focusing more on mobilizing the items that are already imports in Cuba and that need to be transported to beneficiaries. The scale, obviously, of the needs is much, much greater than what could be resolved through these private operators in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Francisco, thank you, and we hope to see you back soon, but thank you for coming here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Helsinki.